Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Afternoon Tune. I am your host, Josh, and with me are my two co-hosts.
It's your boy, Chase.
And it's your boy, Nick.
And good old Bubbles there, cute Bubbles. And today we got our first guest ever in the Afternoon Tune podcast right here, Miranda Maverick. Yes, that is her real name. Her last name is Maverick. That is true. And she just finished a nice event at UFC 260. How are you, Miranda?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on a lot. Thanks for giving us your time. We got this hookup through Nick. So how do you two guys know each other there?
I used to train at the House of Muay Thai, I do train at the House of Muay Thai in Norfolk, Virginia, and Nick used to go there as well. So met him through the gym.
Oh, nice. Yeah, very.
Yep, and she used to beat the crap out of me a lot.
Yeah.
I'm partners, so I think it was mutual. But...
Yeah, because Nick telling us you were hitting those training pads pretty
You're
hard.
embellishing a little, but I do.
There's pictures out there where he's like, oh.
I need that picture.
No, we're gonna cut that in.
I think when that picture was posted, I remember just thinking, God, why that picture? Because all I can remember thinking was, oh God, please don't kill me.
Oh wow. So you just finished fighting Gillian Robertson. The fight had got postponed due to an illness that she suffered. I think after the fight and with UFC 260, she probably wished she stayed sick, but you know what I mean. But all fun here. No throwing shots, anything like that. So if you could just tell us about the fight, your preparation for it, how did you feel going into it, and then afterwards, the pros and cons, if anything you can improve upon afterwards.
Right. There's definitely always things I can improve upon. I'll say that much. Unfortunately, I didn't get a full fight camp for the second time around with her, but I just saw it as an extension of the next. I had already been training since basically Christmas for that fight because I thought that it was going to happen with Gillian. We tried to book in December. She ended up fighting Talia, I think, in early January or something like that. It was going to be me, but I had to study for finals for school, so I wasn't able to do that fight, unfortunately. Moved the date after that fight. They still wanted to book it between me and Gillian, even though she had lost that one. Tried to book it for February 13th, right before Valentine's Day. Got there, I made weight, did everything I needed to do. Unfortunately, we were within an hour of going to the cage, and that's when I got the message from her, that she wanted to tell me before the UFC did, that she was going to have to cancel on me because she was feeling sick since that morning. And I'm sure it was a mixture of things, whether it be her nervous, people want to talk trash on her or whatever. I'm not going to because, hey, things happen in the fight game. It is hard. And maybe she got food poisoning a little bit. Maybe it was a mixture of nerves and, getting a little bit sick. Who knows? And it doesn't matter, really. I respect her for rebooking the fight as soon as she did. We tried to keep getting different dates to rebook it. I'd be busy. Her coaches would be busy. We had a lot of things get in the way and finally got it rebooked. And I just kept training, those extra 4 weeks. I took that first week and just kind of went a little lighter in training just so I could get my body to recover from the weight cut because those are hard, And for me, they're way harder than they were for Gillian. That's a fact, She probably cuts 10 pounds total. I cut almost 20. So it's pretty brutal on me, and I think they knew that. I had a pretty rough weight cut coming into this last fight just because my body didn't get the chance to rehab itself and get my metabolism back under control from the previous weight cut. And then on top of that, being a girl, crap happens, and I was a little bit sick, just a whole mess of things. But made weight. It was hard, but I made it. Got there on the scale, was feeling kind of rough, but by the time fight day was there, I was feeling 100%. I was ready to go. Got in there. I was still a little bit sick, and I kind of felt that the second round. I don't think I showed it. I don't think anybody knows it, but the second round, I was definitely not gassed, but my chest hurt. It was like running outside for 5 miles in the freezing cold. You taste that penny feeling, right, in your mouth, like blood. And that's what I was feeling the second round just from trying to breathe. But as you guys could see, I'm sure I faced the adversity in the second round, got up and just kept going. That was the whole game plan, I guess, was to push her even when she thought I was going to be the one taking a break. My opponent doesn't get breaks. I'm not going to let him have breaks, whether I'm losing, winning, no matter what, and I don't think I did give her a break. But I will say, like, looking back on that fight, there's a lot of mistakes, more than anybody else would recognize. I'm my hardest critic. I think that's how you have to be, to not only not be cocky, but to learn and get better, and grow through the sport. You can't just be like, yeah, I did a great job. Like, you're never going to learn that way. You obviously, if you can't recognize your own mistakes, then they're going to recognize them instead and capitalize on them.
Yeah.
And not only was I on the ground, and like at times I would pull her into my jiu-jitsu game instead of push away and get up, because jiu-jitsu is kind of my home. It's hers as well, though, and I definitely had the strength on my feet. So there were times I should have separated faster than I did. And I would have been able to get up faster as a result. There's times when I could have taken her down more than I did, I think, and just positioned myself a little bit better for ground and pound at times. And then my striking, like there were a couple times my distance was just a bit off, or my range, or my speed even, and the volume in the first round was a little bit lacking. Those are my takeaways. I got this little baby shiner now from getting in too close when I was throwing some punches, and it was actually her head came up. It wasn't from a punch from her. So again, my own fault. I didn't distance correctly. So a lot of takeaways, a lot of good things. I got done, and now this is the first time I've ever taken 2 full weeks off of training. I needed it for school, honestly. I'm kind of in a pickle right now. I got finals coming up, and it gets very hard for grad school. So working my way through that, and I'll get back to training next week at a semi-regular pace for fight camp, and then fight camp will start like, I don't know, end of May is when we'll like really kick butt into it.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're going to school studying for a PhD in industrial organizational psychology, correct?
Correct.
So how hard is that to really balance everything? Because I mean, your schedule is insane. You said you got school, you got the finals, you got to train for fighting, you got to do all that preparation that comes with that. I mean, so your daily regimen and stuff like that. How do you keep it all in order and maintain and keep your sanity there? I should say.
I don't know if you guys can see it. I got a big calendar over here. I have one on my phone, and then I have one that's a smaller one here, and write literally everything down for 30-minute segments a day, and put everything that I need to do in the day first by time, and then add in stuff in the margins of what I actually need to do, So it gets pretty crazy. It's hard for me to find time to sleep, and especially for like social activities and things to just kind of calm my mind. That's hard to fit in nowadays. And especially when I'm training hard for fight camps, my body's so exhausted that I don't really want, to do anything other than train in school. And then I'm exhausted. I can't do anything else. But yeah, the scheduling, making sure I get enough sleep is really important for me. And then sponsors have helped a lot, and my boyfriend's helped a lot, like being able to meal prep for me, being able to take care of, daily chores. Like they add up, it gets to where I'm just living in a pigsty sometimes, because I'm like, my clothes, I wash like one load every 2 days when I'm training fully, because it's 3 pairs of clothes a day plus whatever I'm wearing at the house and school. So it gets ridiculous, and same way with dishes. When I didn't have a meal prep company, like I was cooking all the time, it just got stressful. And now that I have help with that, some sponsors that are giving me meal prep, sponsors that are providing me with clothes, like different stuff like that has just been really helpful.
That's clutch.
Yeah,
especially the meal prep. Like, what inspired you to get into the UFC? Like, was there like a specific like moment? Was it like you just happened to stumble into training at the gym one day and somebody was just like, why don't you try this out?
No, I have a pretty, like, I guess you would say unorthodox way that I got into MMA. It started out the same story as self-defense, but when I was young, I used to roughhouse and stuff with my dad and my siblings at the time, and it wasn't the typical, like, I push you down and hold you down, say mercy kind of thing. Like, we would watch the UFC, like, since I was a young kid, and we would learn moves and go on YouTube, and Dad would teach us arm bars and teach us heel hooks, and we lived a ways away from town because we were always on the farm. So we would just learn with each other, And then when I was 18, I asked my dad if I could actually go train at a gym, and he was like, I guess, but you're paying for it, Like, okay, that's fine. And so I found a way to do that. He helped me, and my siblings helped me cut cords of wood. Like, we'd chop firewood and go sell it on Craigslist and stuff, and that's how I paid my gym. And went to the gym though for the first like month, 2 months. I trained at a I call it a McDojo. I don't like being too mean to them because they did get me technically started in martial arts, but um, they had a little jujitsu program and they had a juvenile class. And at the time, I was very worried about rolling with men. You know, it was just weird to me. It was awkward. I'm 16, 17 years old. I don't want guys touching me in positions that jujitsu brings you. And then after a few weeks, I started beating them up, you know, and I was like, you know, I'm rolling with boys my own age, and it was just too easy almost. And so I jumped into the adults class there, got to where I was beating a lot of them, and I asked about competition. They didn't want me to compete, and they didn't really have anybody that competed. So I was like, I'm leaving. So I left that gym, went to a gym that was a little bit more renowned around there, and a bigger one with a bunch of black belts at it that were legit. And that's where I trained until I moved out to Virginia for grad school. And with them, I did jujitsu for a year or so, and then decided I finally wanted to try MMA. Even though at 14 we had sat on the sofa, and Dad was like, "You could do that one day," you know, when we were first Ronda Rousey fight in the UFC. And I was like, "No, I do not want punched in the." And next thing you know, I watched these amateur fights in Springfield, Missouri. I thought it was a joke. Like I watched the women fight, and it was embarrassing. And I was like, I can do better than that. My coaches were like, don't say anything when you haven't been punched in the face yet. You know, the whole thing for the casuals on the sofa. And saying I wanted to try it too. So I did, went in there my first time and said if I won and I liked the feeling of not hurting somebody, but of winning and beating up somebody, then I would do it, go be the best I could be. Or if I lost or didn't like the feeling, like felt too bad about it, because I'm a nice person. Like I'm not, you know, a mean person walking around all the time. I don't get fights all the time. You be quiet, Nick. You be quiet. But I feel
Sounds like Nick has the tea.
Right. And so I did end up liking it. I did end up winning. And so the rest is history.
Yeah. So, you know, since you've been watching the UFC, you know, at a young age, where do you think, you know, it is now compared to when you first saw it, and in terms of just overall the sport and just specifically also the female division of the sport?
I'll focus on the female division first. Obviously, when I first started watching it, there was no women. You know, I was a little kid, and I just thought that men fought. I didn't even realize women did it, literally, until I watched the first Ronda Rousey fight, I think, versus Liz Carmouche. Which I thought was so exciting. It was so technical, and we were watching it, and I was like, "Oh, there's an armbar, Dad. You taught me that," you know. And we're sitting there on the sofa watching that, and so that was exciting. And to watch it go from the first fight to having a group of fighters in the women division at 135 to now having 115, 125, 135, and 145, plus seeing Invicta with 105ers, you know, and PFL with 155ers. Then overseas, of course, even more weight divisions. The sport has just come a long way, with pay too. You know, I'm not a huge like feminism, like I don't do that whole thing, but women definitely were paid less within the sport at the beginning, and Ronda Rousey kind of made the splash, and then kind of all those girls kind of fought to get the pay pretty equal, and now the women and men basically get the same pay unless they're main carders, and that's just because, you know, if they aren't exciting, they aren't exciting. Same with the guys. But it's been an exciting road for the men too. I feel bad for the guys I know that are in MMA because it's such a harder road for them. It's just the truth. Like there's probably 10 times more competition when you're a guy, and 10 times less of a chance for you to get in the UFC and make it, you know, a living.
Okay. When you speak of like the weight divisions, and all the different classes, I know that, you know, you really hated being asked this question of people saying like when you had to cut weight, and then people say, well, why don't you just be a bantamweight and then jump up, you know, 10 more pounds instead of just always having to cut weight? What is your big, you know, issue with that question, and just issue with the bantamweight division and just jumping up there? Do you just think because like, well, I don't have to do that because I can always make the weight? Is that just the main reason you hate that question? Or
No, the problem with the question is it's posed from an ignorant stance, not even to be insulting to the people who ask it all the time, but obviously they've never cut weight or been in a combat sport. If I were to weigh in, let's say at is bantamweight, that's 135, right? I should know this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I were to fight at bantamweight, which would only be, you know, that would be a very less significant amount for me to cut. Like that's about a 7-pound cut from fight camp weight. I would be facing girls that walk around 20 pounds heavier than me, 15
Mm.
pounds heavier than me. That's a significant advantage when you're rolling with someone or being pushed against the cage or punched in the face by them. It just is. Chris Cyborg, she's huge compared to me. She fights, when she fought at 145, that's the weight that I walk around at right now. Like,
Mm.
I'm pounds lighter than that. That's it. Like, I'm not fighting her. No, she's size probably. Like, she's a man's, like, regular average size, you know? Like, I'm not fighting her. I don't want to fight her. So we're kind of forced to go down in weight classes to find the division where we're strong and powerful at. And
Mm.
when that's weight, there can't be a person who doesn't. You know, it's just, it doesn't work that way. You get hurt. You see
Right.
girls cut weight or they're less fit in those divisions. You know, they got a little fat on them and stuff, and they don't do very well, especially not in the higher, you know, the higher stuff. It's okay when you're an AMI. I tell people they don't have to worry as much about cutting because, you know, it's your trial run. Amateur is literally to learn. So don't worry about cutting down to your extreme weight. But once you turn pro, it's game on. Your record never gets to start over.
Mm.
Right. Very point. So what are your main goals in the UFC as far as, you know, being a part of it and everything?
Well, right now I'm in number 15, which is huge. 2 fights in to be ranked is amazing. It's a dream come true. But those dreams just keep growing from there. First, it was the dream to be an Invicta. Then it was the dream to be the top of Invicta. Then it was the dream to get in the UFC. Now I'm in the UFC. Then it was the dream to get into the top 15. Boom, that happened way faster than I thought. Now it's the dream of getting the top 10, then the top 5, then contender for the title, you know, and then perhaps title holder. But also beyond that, it's a whole ends to a means. Fighting isn't like, okay, I fought, this is the end of my life, this is the end of my dreams. Like, I want to be able to support my family very well. You know, I
Mm.
want this to be lucrative enough to where I can make a decent living and be happy not having like a 9 to 5 job in addition to it. I don't want to always have to be as busy as I am because I can't afford not to be.
I had a question about adapting to kind of a new environment, especially given the COVID-19 pandemic last year, restrictions on gyms. How were you able to adapt to it?
I'll be honest, I didn't have as much of problems as a lot of people because even though
Mm.
Virginia closed down for a couple months, I was training during that time. I had enough of a group of friends that I was like, "Hey guys, I know somebody with a garage with mats in it. Do my little text people. I'll go in there and we roll." I focused on jujitsu a lot more than striking, which might be the opposite of what you'd think during a pandemic. But there's less people that can hold pads for me and more people that can roll.
Mm.
But then I got offered the fight, what was supposed to be my debut, for June of 2020. And so during that time leading up to it, I met with my coach, you know, 3 times a week to hold pads. I met with my other coach to roll and work on MMA techniques. I just got in what training I could and what I needed.
Mm.
I kind of like the environment now that I've went back. We changed our schedule a little bit. Everybody's a little careful the way that they spar now. We've changed a lot at the gym as far as nobody's trying to knock their head off as much anymore like they used to. And yeah, I'll take some of the credit for that. I feel like my eye surgery really kind of turned that
Mm.
around. In June, we found out I had 2 torn retinas.
Mm.
It's no surprise how that happened. You know, it was all trauma related. They told me within the previous 2 years, that's the timeline of which I had been going to the gym I'm at and been sparring with all these guys. I've gotten knocked loopy, as Nick knows, multiple times in training. And I'm like, hey, like, you 170-pound guys plus can't be punching me in the head. Like, stop. And they're like, well, you hit me hard. And I'm like, I have to defend myself. Like, if you don't hit me, I don't hit you. It's a whole game, you know? It's like, okay, I hit a little, you hit a little. Okay, I'm going to hit a little harder. Okay, I'll hit a little harder. And especially when people are newer, like, they just don't know how that game works. As the more experienced person, you're supposed to be the one turning the dial, right? As a female, it's sometimes hard for me to turn that dial back down because they're already swinging at me. And I'm like, I get kind of mad pretty easy with that stuff. And I'm like, all right, you're going to swing at me. I guess I'm going to kick you in the head, like, or the case may be. So we've learned to, like, be a little bit more technical in the sparring and stuff, which is awesome for me. Training's been great lately. And after like 2 months of the COVID thing, we were back to, I wouldn't say normal. It had a little bit smaller classes, like you'd have to sign up for them and stuff. But it was actually beneficial for me because now I have very consistent partners.
Just let me know, like, how do you go about it? Do you more so focus on like the opponent's weaknesses, or do you focus more so on your strengths and trying to enhance those strengths? Or is it a mix of both?
Yeah, I do everything. I feel like the closest you can get to cheating in a fight, the better. Like that sounds. I'm gonna watch all your interviews. I'm gonna watch all of your fights. I'm gonna watch everything about you so that I can learn your mental weaknesses, your physical weaknesses, everything. Right. So I just want to get their view. Like even sometimes people are stupid enough to admit to like an interview like this what their exact game plan is, and I'm like,
Oh,
Write that down. Write that down.
my bad. I am not a plant.
no.
Just tell us what you're allowed to say.
That's the process. I'll go and watch fight interviews, and I'm like, you just. Mind you, reverse psychology works too. I've done that in a fight where I'm like, I'm going to beat the crap out of them on the feet. I'm going to use full striking. They're going to see my new striking power, go in there, 10 seconds, take them to the ground, beat them up, right? Because they're like, oh, Miranda's going to be striking. Let me work on this. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Just kidding. Like, why would I do that, you know? So this fight's kind of the same way. I just look and see what I think their weaknesses are and what my weaknesses are. Like I said, I never shy away from that. I watch my own fights over and over again because the opponent's going to be doing the same thing. And I'm like, if I was my opponent, what would I see? And I write it down as if I was the opponent, right? Like I take a little notepad and I'm like, this person's susceptible to a left hook. This person's susceptible to head kicks on this side, like whatever it might be, right? This person sucks at takedown defense. And then I watch my own and I'm like, damn, looks like I suck at takedown defense. My left hand's down. Like, that kind of thing. And I go back in with that, and I, for one whole class, will work on that one thing, and then the next thing. Like even if it requires me getting beat up for a whole day, you know, maybe it's, man, I'm not checking any kicks, I just eat them. Well, that's not good for a 3-round fight, you know. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna get punched in the head as many times as I need to, but I'm gonna check every kick.
Okay.
Process, I guess. I work on jiu-jitsu, I work on my Muay Thai, I work on the ground game, I work on the wall work. All of it goes into the full person, you know. You don't get to be ranked in the world without putting in all the work, including the miserable stuff that nobody sees, right? Where you're just grinding, like you're almost crying at the end of practice and you're staying there an extra hour after everybody else. You're hitting pads to the point you're like, can we stop? Like, I need a break. And they're like, no, you got 2 more rounds. What are you doing? So you get back in, you work, or you get on that stupid bike. I hate the Aerodyne bike. And you push for 2 more rounds than you want to, you know, and try to beat your last pace. So that kind of stuff, just that's what makes you different than everybody else. And I'll say for myself, I think another thing that makes me different is like my adaptability in a fight, my IQ in a fight, and also like having everything else I'm doing. Like people have to realize whatever my potential is, I haven't even touched because I'm doing everything else at the same time.
Yeah.
You made a kind of called somebody out, a person that you definitely did want to fight in the future, Antonina Shevchenko. What is it about her that particularly like you really want to fight her?
Antonina Shevchenko is Valentina Shevchenko's sister, who is the champion at my weight class right now. And it would piss me off if somebody beat up my little sister, and it's her big, but same difference, you know. So I figured I'd beat her up first and move my way up the ladder, have another thing that Valentina was motivated to fight me over.
Also in my mind, Valentina's kind of like one of those fighters that it's very hard to replicate her style in a training camp. So the closest you can get is fighting her sister, who has a very similar style to her.
Yeah, especially in the stand-up. Unfortunately, she's not quite good, but also, I think it'd be a good matchup stylistically. She has the striking. I have striking that's up and coming. She has a decent ground game. I think I have a better ground game, but she was ranked number 12. I was ranked number 15. I thought it was a nice one to move up the ladder.
Yeah. And you talked a lot about just the rankings in the interview and saying that there's a lot of older fighters there and that a lot of people try to pin the younger fighters against each other when it should be a lot of the younger fighters going up against basically the old heads. in the women's division. What about that specifically is a big deal to you? Just about taking on? Is this just because those people have just been in for a while, and you think that they
Not
should face up and
not
coming people?
one, Antonina's one of those, right? That's
Mm.
another reason I picked her. But they talk, they whine. You hear fans whine, you hear casuals, you hear like YouTubers and stuff. They're predicting fights, and it gets on my nerves sometimes. And they're like, "Well, the 125-pound division just doesn't have a clear contender." True, I'll give them that. Valentina's a monster. She's a very dominant champion, and they're like, because Valentina's such a dominant champion, nobody stands out in the flyweight division. I'm like, I wonder why. Maybe because you have the same 8 people going up against her every single time,
Mm.
and they won't let anybody rotate in because they keep ruining these potential prospects. Even me, Macy, Barber, like one of us is getting knocked out of the top 15, basically. Like there's not any question about it. One of us is going to be kind of slid down a little bit, right? When we're both technically like these prospects, regardless of what they want to say about Macy, she's arrogant. She has 2 losses in a row, whatever they want to say. Right before that, they were hyping her up. But she's one of those that got thrown into the fire too quickly, right? She got 2 hard fights too quick. She's like 21, 22, I think. She's the only fighter I will have ever fought younger than me or within even a couple of years, which is crazy. And they keep throwing her to these hard people who are also young prospects. And it's hard to get another clear, like people coming up when you're keeping the 38-year-olds and 36-year-olds in the division because they don't want to take harder fights or they're just fighting each other over and over again or whatever the case may be. I think for the marketing standpoint and the fan standpoint, they should have waited until me and Macy had another fight or 2 under our belts, working our way. You know, let's say we're 4th and 5th, then pit us against each other. That's a money fight. That's a fan wanting to see fight. But until then, we're not helping each other. I'm 14, she's 15, or I'm sorry, I'm 15th, she's 14th ranked. If I beat her, we might literally like just switch spots. If she beats me, it'll stay the exact same probably. What's the benefit in that ranking wise? 2, what's the benefit whether she loses? As long as she doesn't get cut, she's just the same Macy. They're just going to have to give her a couple more fights to get her feet on under her and then fight again. If I win, you know, I get another top 10 opponent and slowly keep working my way up. But no real benefit, no real loss to us. You know, it's just a stupid match, in my opinion, from that perspective. Now, mind you, it is the fight that fans want to see. I just think they should have waited to do that because it would have been even bigger, if you know what I mean.
A better story, yeah.
So what do you think about when UFC fighters kind of make the crossovers and try to do these kind of spectacle events when it comes to boxing or something like that, or crossover and kind of those other sports like that? I mean, what's your opinion on things like that, of UFC fighters doing things like that, or when people try to come into the UFC, like with CM Punk, what he did? Just get your general thoughts on that.
I think it's a lot easier to go out of MMA into a different sport than out of another sport in MMA. Much, much easier because we know every sport, a little bit of it. You know, I think truly I could go into a pro boxing fight against a fairly new boxer and I would win, or at least stand a chance. You know, a boxer that has never done any grappling game comes into my realm, I'm going to choke him out in 30 seconds. Like, that's all there is to it. Same way with a Muay Thai fighter, jiu-jitsu fighter might get pieced up on the feet. You see some rare occasions. You see the Damian Maias out there, the Mackenzie Derns. They're doing amazing with their jiu-jitsu. They've gotten a long ways. But you also see the holes in their game. It's very obvious. You know, you look at Gillian Robertson. Same thing. But, for instance, Gillian goes out and does jiu-jitsu tournaments all the time. She wins them. She does great. She's able to keep active and keep herself healthy as a result. I'm the same way. Throughout Invicta especially, I was taking jiu-jitsu fights every other weekend. Like, I was doing it all the time because it becomes one of those things that's no pressure. Like, that's not my ultimate goal, is world champ in jiu-jitsu, even though I have already, and like it's good and it's a great feeling, but there's no threat to your life. You know, it becomes less of a thrill, I guess you'd say. Like, sleeping on the sidelines during PANS camp, which is huge, like no gi pans or gi pans for jiu-jitsu. It's one of the biggest in the world competitions. And I'll be sleeping on the sidelines, and then they'll call my name, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll go in there and win this real quick. I don't do that fights at all. I'm like, okay, need to warm up, need to be ready. Everything needs to be tip top.
Mm.
It's just a different world. So I definitely think crossover is honestly good for you, especially in MMA. You get to learn more and more of a technique. If I want to learn more boxing and like I'm lacking in that thing, maybe one day I will do it. Now I won't because UFC one wouldn't allow that, but two, like I'm at the point where I'm good enough that I don't need to do that. But if I were to start over, I might have done it a little bit more as a
Mm.
start pro, especially as an amateur. I would have taken some boxing ones. I would have taken some Muay Thai smokers. I would have done a little bit different than what I did.
I guess maybe for, you know, whoever may be watching this and wants to be an up and coming MMA fighter, what do you think would be like the steps to get there? You know what I'm saying?
I didn't know if you were going to say the advice. I have bad advice for some of the Amis out there.
I feel like the
You and
steps
me,
are-
you and me have talked a fair amount of shit at like amateur fights.
Well, I'm like, not even that. You got to know when to stop. I'll be honest.
Mm.
Not every fighter is going to be a world champion, and every fighter thinks they're going to be, but sometimes they need to go look in the mirror and like slap themselves and figure out if they're actually going to be. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, hashtag world champ, hashtag future champ. And I'm like, you showed up in the gym one time this week. You have a job that you're barely able to keep up with, and you still can't make it to training even because you need a nap. Like, I don't know. You're never going to make it, you know, doing that. Or there's the people that half-ass their training. I'm sorry, you're not going to make it. Like, they'll be like, oh, I'm young, I got time. And I'm like, you're 27. I don't know. Like, you might be able to make pro. I'm not saying you won't do that. But to go and, like, make a living with it, two very different things, especially if you're a man. Like, that's just part of it, which sucks. Like, a woman, I'll be honest, I got a blessing within this sport. There was less competition, and I just went real quick and I'd say I had a hard road, don't get me wrong, but it was easier to stand out in my early years as a female. Me and a close friend of mine, Garrett Armfield, actually, he fights out of Sanford MMA in Florida. He's very good. Very good. Like, his boxing is excellent. His wrestling defense and offense is awesome. But he faces these guys that are also awesome. You know, there's a lot more competition out there, and he keeps trying to rank up in opponents. And sometimes he runs into a roadblock, and it becomes difficult for him. And he's like, damn, like, my record's the same as what yours was at this point, but I don't feel like I'm as high as far as notoriety or this and that. And I'm like, yeah, it's hard to be, you know, as a guy. It just is. So my advice for them as far as training goes, be in there consistently. Consistency is key. You know, they say it as a whole phrase of life, but it's true. Not only that, find a gym that cares about you. Find a couple training partners that you have as training partners, not that you're like, oh, good, somebody showed up. Like, be talking to them, be like, hey, I need you in here every day of my fight camp. And then have coaches that have your well-being at heart. Don't take fights that you're going to lose right off the bat. You need a mix of confidence and a mix of learning yourself. You know, amateur fights are to learn and progress, not necessarily to throw yourself into the ring of fire before you're ready to. And on top of that, like, get your nutrition under control. That's the very first thing. Don't be one of those people that goes out and parties every day after they get done. Don't go eat 2 steaks and some cheese after you get done weighing in. It's just a matter of self-control. You know, don't be that person that loses their temper in training or goofs off. I'm a very, Nick knows this, every one of my training partners know this. I'm very playful, right? Like, in training, like, I joke around a lot. I'm very happy. If I'm like grumpy and pissy, like, sometimes I'm focused. There's a difference. But if I'm pissy during fight camp and I'm just like, get out my way, I don't want to train with you, or I'm only training with this person, whatever it may be, you're never going to get better that way because you're not being humble, you're not having an open mind, and you're not having fun. And at the end of the day, even though I don't believe in the whole, I don't do this for fun, it's true, I don't. It should be something you have a passion for and have fun doing if you're going to be trying to be the best you can be.
Absolutely. Well, you know, glad you were able to sit with us. I know your schedule is obviously insane, and big thanks to Nick for setting this up. Big thanks for you for coming on. Do you want to pimp your stuff real quick?
Yeah, where can they find this nice merch?
Yeah, very, very nice shirt. You know what I mean? So
Thank you. Yeah, for me, Instagram's the easiest way and best way to go follow me and get a hold of me and follow my story. It's at Fear the Maverick _HOMT. You can also just look up my name on just about any social media, Miranda Maverick. I'm the only one out there that I know of.
right.
Pretty obvious. So go follow me on those. I have merchandise for sale. They held up some of the shirts. I still have those for sale. I'm also getting ready to have a website come out hopefully within the next month or so. So you'll be able to go straight on there, purchase some hats, purchase shirts, purchase fanny packs. That's a new thing coming.
Oh, fanny packs.
So
Okay.
yeah, so go check that out. And then my sponsors, like I'm not gonna plug every single one of them on here. I've got a lot that help me though, and I don't just support any sponsors that like, oh, here's $200. Like you'll know when that happens, but at the same time, I've got a lot of sponsors that have been supporting me since the beginning that really support the sport, support local businesses. I've got the meal prep company who really is amazing. I've got let's see what else, like Top Mount Apparel. They're the ones that make all of my shirts, all of my gear. So if you want to support them or go check out some of their stuff, they're pretty funny. They've got like some meme shirts that are like talk jitsu, or some funny stuff. So check them out. And then, Yotun supports my gis. So if you're into jujitsu and stuff, I definitely suggest to get one of those. They're awesome people, family oriented, and have amazing stuff too. But all my stuff's on my link tree under my Instagram. So you can click that, go get discounts on all that stuff. And if you go to my Instagram, you'll see some little promos I'm running over getting free autograph pictures if you go and purchase from a few of my sponsors.
It's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. And best of luck to you in your efforts in your next upcoming fight. Of course, we're gonna be rocking the shirts. Fight day. You know what I mean. Shout out to you. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you.